of the North Star Church.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to pray. I've been before the board many times, different hats. Well, this is one of my favorites. So
The
I asked
other's
the
a
mayor how-
lawyer, so that can't be good.
I asked him how long I had. He said 20 minutes or so, something like that. Join me, if you would, in praying. Father God, we thank you for a beautiful, blessed day you've given us. God, we thank you for the privilege, the blessing, Lord, to live in what we consider the most beautiful place on the earth that you've made. I pray, God, for our country. I pray as you lead our country, God, that you'll guide it. As we go through the election process, we pray for leaders, men and women, God, that you will guide according to your principles. We pray, God, for our men and women around the country that serve in our military, all of our firefighters and police. We pray, God, for your protection on them and your guidance. God, we especially lift up this afternoon, this council. We thank you for them. We thank you for their dedication, God, and their selfless service to our community. I pray for all the decisions they'll make, not just today, Father, but throughout the next year as they make important decisions, God, on the lives of our citizens. We pray that, God, you'll give them wisdom past all understanding. You'll guard their hearts and minds. We pray, God, that you'll give them strength and courage to make decisions for the best of our community. We pray all these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Say the
And the
pledge.
pledge.
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, folks. I'd like to ask for a motion for the approval of the minutes of the July 14th meeting, fellas.
motion to approve.
I'll second.
Sugar, ma'am, clerk?
Councilman Solis,
Yes.
Councilman Riekert,
Yes.
Councilman Chester,
Yes.
Councilwoman Strange, Mayor Thomas,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Item number 5, the approval of the agenda, and ask if anybody has any additions or deletions, and I would like to move from the consent agenda, the fire truck resolution 16102, down to the regular agenda, so that our city manager will have an opportunity to explain some changes that have come up this week. Any motion to approve the
I'll make a motion, move resolution 16-102 from the consent agenda to the regular agenda items.
Second.
Councilman Solis,
Yes.
Councilman Riekert,
Yes.
Councilman Chester,
Yes.
Councilwoman Strange,
yes,
Mayor Thomas,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Item number 6 is public comments. These comments are limited to comments about items that are on the agenda. We ask that if you come up, you give your name and address, and that you speak for 3 minutes. We will take whatever questions you ask and answer at the end to give you your full enjoyment of your 3 minutes. Before we get into that today, I'd like to ask how many people are here about item number 1 on the regular agenda, short-term leasing on Bay Avenue. That seems to be a majority of the people, and everybody has a right to give their comments, and I would not do anything to take that away from anybody. But there are some facts about this that I'd like to say before we get to this that may decide whether you see the need to get up and comment or not. At the last meeting when we went over this, 3 of us I know, and I think 4, said that if there were people on this street and in this neighborhood that didn't want it, we weren't going to vote for it. We have received numerous objections in writing, and I would just ask you to take that into consideration. I don't want to stop you from talking if you want to, but sometimes you don't want to listen to me if you don't have to, and I don't know that I want to listen to you, but we will be more than glad to. And thank you very much. Would anybody like to get up and speak?
My name is Mary Kay Casares. I live at 120 Seclusion Beach. I'm the one that sent you the petition of over 108 signatures in regards to that topic that were against it. There were over 40 that were in the current short-term rental area that is against it, even in their area. And I just think it's wrong now, even though I want to thank everybody that signed the petition. We could have gotten more signatures. I think it's wrong with all of the current high-rises going in with hotels, motels, and condos, that we need short-term rental and residential areas to begin with. I want to know who's living next door to me, and so do my neighbors, especially in our current times. You need to have your eyes open to protect each other, and you can't do that with short-term. And I encourage you to please drive down Millcole and those areas just to see the difference between those and the areas that we don't have it in Bidawee. It's bad. I don't mind it on Front Beach Road. They're not tied to a neighborhood, a named neighborhood. That's different. They're 1, 2, 3, whatever. But these are family homes. You have children running around on the streets, and that's the way it should stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Pat Blackshear. I'm a certified planner, a fellow AICP, and my company name is Blackshear Planning Incorporated, 103 Gulf Point Road, Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. And I have about 40 years of experience in planning, so I understand, Mayor Thomas, you know, how difficult these issues are. And I am representing Janie and Daniel Weeks, and I did meet with staff and discuss the status of the ordinance change and the status of the neighborhood issues, and I did get a package, and I did view all of the information. But what I'd like to speak to is the ordinance change did not address a grandfather. And I guess I should clarify, I'm not here asking for, a large area to be exceeded and added into the into the ability to have rentals. What I'm here to speak to is the ordinance that was adopted and how it affected my client. They, in fact, had a rental are in this neighborhood before the adoption. They were paying their taxes appropriately, and they have their adequate documentation, and they should have the ability to grandfather in. The ordinance should have clarified that point. Those issues should have been addressed at the hearing, and to my knowledge, that discussion did not occur. I'm not, again, asking you to open it up to large areas. I'm just asking that there be an appropriate grandfather provision in the ordinance, or recognition of the existing grandfather, the kind of catch-all grandfather provision of your code, that if you have, and this is a business to them, even though it is a single-family use, that they be grandfathered and have the ability to provide the documentation, and certainly they have the documentation, and they will speak next to specifically that documentation. And any ordinance should address that issue of grandfathering. And let me add that certainly with all my years of experience with local planning issues, I'm well aware of these types of problems. I live in the Blue Mountain Beach subdivision, and we have the same issues in my subdivision. And it was a problem for a while, but after enough calls to the proper authorities, they backed it down, and we haven't had any problems on my street. There's probably 3/4 of the homes that rent, and a lot of them are like my clients today that I'm here for. They are renting during the high season period to help them pay for ultimately will be their retirement home.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
And so I'm asking for, please provide a grandfathering process for Mr. and Ms. Weeks, and they
Thank
will
you.
speak to their documentation.
Thank you. Next. Hearing no one else, we'll
Actually, my name's Doug Schmidt, and my wife Kevin Schmidt. I've been a resident.
come right up here,
Yes,
name and
sir. I'm
address.
sorry. Doug Schmidt, address 415 Petrel Street, Bidawee Beach. My primary home is in Palmetto Trace. I've been a resident here for 20 years, active duty retired SEAL warrant officer, and I've had to rent my house out long-term over many years and try to keep up with it. I love my neighbors, I love the neighborhood, and in fact, I got a Korean War vet right next to me. He's an awesome guy, and he's suffering from Alzheimer's now, and I just helped him put up some shutters the other day. Anyways, I planned on renting out my home on a weekly basis, and I'm also concerned about issues of riffraff and crime in the area, what have you. So, speaking of, I don't actively rent it out now. I've been working with management companies. I have an LLC, started up a business to start this rental. So I just ask the council to take that in consideration, that I'm a law-abiding citizen. I have a criminology degree, master's in Homeland Security, and I love my neighborhood. I'm concerned about it. But I think it's kind of hard to say, hey, we're going to put this line in the sand or build that Berlin Wall and tell you how to live or tell you what to do. You know, we still live in the greatest country in the world, freedom, liberty, at least I hope so. So that's it. I'll wrap it up. I know you got a long agenda here you need to take care of. But just please consider us in this battle. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ma'am, your time's up.
Well, I just have a question.
Way up.
May I ask,
Oh, this was closed a while ago, and nobody said anything. We've already been through this, and we'll move on to the regular agenda now, consent agenda. Amy?
I had 3 more people.
Oh, okay. Somebody had turned their names in?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All
Janie
right.
Weeks,
my question is it more?
Ma'am, you'll have to come up here.
Is it more appropriate to speak now or to speak under the agenda
Right
item
now
one?
is the time to do it.
Okay. I'm Janie Weeks. I reside at 100 Belmont Trace, Atlanta, Georgia. We own the home at 14306 Bay Avenue, and good evening, and we appreciate your time very much. In the May 26th meeting, we went away from there knowing that Mr. Leonard was going to send certified letters out to the residents of the north side of Bay Avenue, and he did that. And staff also sent the letters to other areas of the community, and in particular to the president of Bidawee Beach Park Association. Now that has a jurisdiction over the beach, but it has no jurisdiction over the residential area at all. But it just so happened that that kind of coincided with a beach park meeting that was taking place quickly, and that's when a petition was put together, and the way all those signatures were gathered was at the front door primarily of that meeting. But the petition is incorrect. The direction we were going in last time was to simply extend short-term rental rights to the north side of Bay Avenue. These folks have been under the assumption and have been encouraged to assume that it's rezoning the entire neighborhood from Front Beach all the way back to Back Beach, and that is incorrect. That is not the proposal that we talked about on May 26th. Also, there's other information that I've got documentation of. We did research, and we looked at the real reason that Ordinance 983 went into place in the first place. And we also found all the discussions, everything that happened, and in one particular meeting on August 25th, 2005, Mayor Sullivan said, we must, and I can quote, it would be appropriate for those absentee owners be notified by certified mail of the planning board's meeting on the issue. And that was in August 25th, 2005 meeting, and that was never done. And so we have rented all this time, not undercover, assuming that we're doing exactly the right thing, freely and legally, until December of last year. I've got all kinds of things. I'd love to address the neighborhood and say they don't know us and don't know what good citizens that we are and what we've taken care of in the neighborhood. We've adopted Nautilus Street all the way from our street to the Front Beach Road. We cut it, we trim it, we pick up trash. No one else does. We've been helpful to our neighbors. We attend church every Sunday. We are here and we support that organization. We have painted the interior of that church. We've done many things, in addition to just the legal things of paying all of our bed tax since day one. And I brought all those records. You can see every rental that's occurred since June the 14th, I believe, 24th, 2004. And we've rented all summers, and even now, we get snowbirds now. So we rent in the summers and we get snowbirds. And we think that along the way, we've received an injustice. And we ask you now, please right the wrong and give us the opportunity to be grandfathered. Just grandfathered, that's all we ask.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kedron Schmidt, and I'm with my husband. I just wanted to say one thing in regards to what she was speaking of. We've owned this house for 20 years. We've had long-term renters in that. We were military, so we moved. We had atrocious behavior with long-term. I don't think that you can just take, and go, well, because it's short-term rental, these aren't good people. We've taken a lot of time to extensively create a family vacation atmosphere. That's what we want. We don't even want spring breakers, rowdiness, craziness. We do love our neighbors beside us. We don't want this to be an inconvenience to them. The other thing is, I'd like to say, I went around today looking at the properties that are rental properties in Bidawee Beach. They're very nice, most of them, because we are interested in keeping the community looking well. We've paid our dues. We want this to be inviting because for some of us it is an income, and a retirement that is not unreasonable in this area. That's what a lot of people from the military and other areas have come back for. These properties are nicer than some of the ones that are owned or neglected by people who don't live there or who do. So I just think that, if you could take all of this into consideration, especially the grandfather part. I mean, for 20 years we've owned this house. We've paid properties taxes just like everybody else. We've paid our dues, and we've helped create the Bidawee that exists now. And so to be told that somebody else's value system is more important than ours just does not seem fair. We all have a vested interest in this area. So I just wanted to put that on your hearts. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
The rental, what address is the rental at that you're talking about where you'd like to do short-term rental?
Well, it's 415 Petrel Street. We are literally 2 houses off of Bay. So, and we've always rented the house out long-term, to which I don't even think.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Who's next?
Stanley Weeks.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Councilman, pardon my voice. What I'd like to talk about is the injustice of it all. Starting back whenever the original council, and I will call you the council if you will, that in 2006 the rules were changed. We were not notified. We didn't know about it. We live out of state. So I think it's not right that the out-of-state people were not notified of changes that affect their property. Especially considering the fact that Panama City Beach depends upon out-of-state revenue. It depends upon people coming in from out of state for what goes on in this livelihood. But we as property owners have no rights, no say-so, especially since we're not notified. It's not right that the rules were changed this last time after we agreed upon things and that a letter went out to the neighborhood that said this. Now that letter was misinterpreted. It said when the petition came out that it was because that everything was going to be rezoned. Again, we know that wasn't true, but that's the way it was presented to the people. So the responses that came in were for rezoning. It wasn't because just Bay Avenue, the north side. I do not believe that was it. I believe the majority of the people looked at rezoning. So I think it's void. It shouldn't be there. It's not right for the community in those conditions to have a say in what goes on in this. And most of all, I think it's that you have the ability to justify and make right what has been done wrong in the past. Because we've done everything that we should have. We live by the rules and we pay the taxes. So why is it that, and as far as everybody wanting to be grandfathered, we're probably the only one left that would qualify back to whenever before the was put into place. So I think we alone are the only ones that stand on that condition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Tom Clumps.
I wanted to speak to the planning board. You want that happen?
It's,
No, sir. Yes.
It's on the
yes.
agenda.
It's on the agenda, yes. I'm sorry.
Tom Plum, 613 Queen City Court. We've got a planning board that's been working great for years. It's volunteers, it's impartial, and now you say you want to get rid of all those people that have served well and a system that has worked very well, and put people in there that are basically not going to follow the ordinances and the codes, but they're going to vote the way that you, the council, want them to vote. I think it's wrong, Mr. Mayor. That's what you said at the last meeting, and I think it's wrong, and I think we should leave the planning board the way it is.
Thank you. All right. Consent agenda. Is there one more?
There's one more.
I
sir.
thought you said 3 all day.
I'm still getting handed some. Bernie
Well, that
Thompson.
part's closed.
Bernie Thompson on the planning board.
Bernie Thompson, 8317 Front Beach Road, and I want to mention the rule of law, because I think that we're forgetting it. The rule of law mandates 2 things. First, that government treat everybody equally. And second, that we know the rules in advance so we can plan our lives and plan our businesses. And it feels a little bit like, as the gentleman has been saying, the rule of law is being supplanted by the law of rulers. Arbitrary and capricious meetings, changing this rule or that rule. These people bought homes expecting that that's how they were going to pay for their homes. That's how they were going to run their business. I hear a lot about a 50-year plan, St. Joe's 50-year economic plan. I mean, my God, even Joseph Stalin was humble enough to limit his economic plans to 5 years. 50 years, really? Is this still America? I want to ask you about the planning board. It was actually established on this day, July 28, 1977, as an independent advisory board. And I'm wondering, what is its job? What is its role? Did any of you hear me? What is the job of the planning board? What is the role?
If you would have been here at the first of the meeting, I said, we'll answer at the end of your 3 minutes so you can enjoy your full 3 minutes.
Terrific. Will I get a chance to reply to your answer?
No, sir.
The planning board, I believe, has ex officio officers, a member of the Navy base, representative of the Navy base, school board, and so on and so forth. What it seems like you're doing now, after you came along, Mr. Mayor, is kind of decimating the diversity of the planning board. It was an independent board to advise you, and it feels a heck of a lot like you're firing all 7 independent board members so that you can appoint 5 political appointees. And I know, Mr. Riegert, you were concerned about that the last time we got together, and I can see in your face that you're probably the only one here who still is. And I think it's important that we have people on an independent board that represents more interest than simply St. Joe's interest. With 3 of your votes going the way that I suspect they're going to go, we don't have any representation if you do that. And so I'd like to ask you another question. What good is it even to have an independent advisory board if you will be representing the 5 new board members? Why don't we dispense with the political theater and you all just do whatever you want to do? Because that's the road we're heading down. And these people who own homes and bought homes under the rule of law, expecting that they could run a business and that there were property rights in America still. I'd ask that you remember that the rule of law should not be supplanted by the law of rulers. You have rules too. The Constitution and property rights still mean something in Panama City Beach. And I hope you'll remember that.
Thank you very much.
Sir, I was handed another one.
That comment period had closed. They'll be able to speak at the end of the meeting. The role of the planning board is to bring rules and laws for the zoning and planning of Bay County, of Panama City Beach, to the city council. And I think also one of their roles was to improve the city by coming to this board as an advisory board and suggest changes to the council, suggest tweaking to codes and things that weren't being enforced. there are probably half of the codes and half of the code enforcement on our board that I don't think are being enforced. And I think a lot of the reason it's been enforced, they're good people on that board, but they've never come to this board asking them to change it. And there's no point in making a rule if you don't follow the rules. And that, we plan on changing. And I do not apologize for that. And what good are boards if they're gonna be people that do what we say? Well, I've got friends that advise me every day. I give copies to, back when I was on the county and now in the city, I give people that are a whole lot, I'm a busboy and a dishwasher pretty much, I give copies of the budget to friends of mine and ask them to help me, tell me where I can cut and what I can do. And that's what boards are for, to advise us of what's good and what's bad. And I think that it'd be the same. And people wonder why we're changing from 7 to 5 that we appoint. This board approves all 7 that are on there. No matter how many there are, they've already been voted on by this board or the board that was here previous. This isn't something new. You're just asking for somebody that each one of these people appoint rather than approving 7 or 5. It would be the same thing. We still have to vote on them. And if anybody has a different answer than that, or one they'd like to expound on before we go into the consent agenda, you're welcome to give it.
In regards to the board, I have no problem with the fact that we're going to be appointing someone to represent us. I think it allows for people to go ahead and have mutual feelings on certain areas in the same way, and they're representing what you were hoping to do when you were elected by the people and what you told the people you were going to do. I take the part as far as them being an independent voice very serious, though. I don't expect somebody to go on that board that's going to do what I ask them to do. I expect them to go on there, on that board, to research, do things that I haven't had time to do, to research regulations, look at the land development code, and make sure everything they're doing is above board. There are people with a lot of experience in this city that have done a lot of different things. But when I appoint somebody, I can tell you from my point of view, that person will be independent. They will not be receiving calls from me saying, this is what I want or what somebody else wants. It's going to be for them to go ahead and come to this board and this council and tell us what they believe, vote their conscience. That's the way I intend to appoint somebody. Like I said, they have to be independent.
Thank you very much.
Or else it does no good.
Consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
With the removal of the first one, there's only one other item on the consent agenda. Resolution 16-105, Preble Rish, Inc., an assignment to Dewberry Engineers and Company. A resolution of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, approving assignment of various master service agreements and related project task orders from Preble Rish, Inc. to Dewberry Engineers and Company.
Do I have a motion to pass or,
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Solis?
Yes.
Councilman Rickert?
Yes.
Councilman Chester?
Yes.
Councilwoman Strange?
Councilman Strange? Did you say yes?
Fellas,
Okay, she's listening to it on TV.
Mayor Thomas?
yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. We'll move into the regular agenda.
Yeah,
That's,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
you're not expecting a cookie, are you?
We got it. Thank you.
We'll move into the regular agenda, discussion of short-term rentals on North Bay Avenue. Mel?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is, as you've already heard, is a request that the Weeks had brought to you for your consideration. And it started with Ordinance 983, January 26, 2006, which the council at that time voted to prohibit short-term rentals, effective immediately with the adoption of the ordinance, in all single-family residential areas, which would be your R1A, R1B, R1C, R1CT, and R0. And then just recently, last December, the council at the time did an amendment to that, Ordinance 1369, which allowed for a continuation of short-term rentals on the 2 residential areas that we have on the Gulf front, the only 2 residential areas that are zoned R1C, one at the west end of the city limits and also the one near kind of in the Dusties area. And about that time, the Weeks had contacted the city about their issue. Code enforcement had received a complaint about a nuisance from that possible short-term rentals, looked into it, and then that's when the discussion started about, as you've already heard, and brought us to this point. And then at the one of the last few meetings, when the Weeks brought the request to you, you would ask staff to send out a letter, and then you would give it consideration one more time, and that's what brings us to this meeting.
Thank you very much. Do you have the figures from the petitions for and against this change?
Yes, sir, and we put them in the packets.
Yes, sir, but could you read them for the record, please?
We sent the letters to all the property owners on the north side of Bay Avenue, and of the responses we had 5 that were in support of it, 9 that were against it, and then there were 4 who had signed a petition against it. And then there were many others who responded both for and against it outside of the Bay Avenue area as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Gentlemen?
I'd like to discuss it. This is an extremely hard discussion regarding this, and I'll outline why it's very difficult for me to make a decision on this and why I'm having such a hard time with it. The fact of the matter was that the Weeks, because there are a lot of things that get put out that aren't accurate sometimes. I remember when the discussion came up prior to me being on the council regarding the other residential area on Front Beach Road, and realizing how hard of a decision the council had to make there, a little bit different because it was on Front Beach Road. But I know one of the things in my mind at that time that I thought would be a determining factor was, did the property owner do their due diligence ahead of time? In this particular case, the Weeks purchased this property in 2006 before the rules were changed. So they bought with good intent to rent. It was legal to rent at the time that they bought. And that makes it very difficult because they did their due diligence. There are some people that buy in after the fact and don't care about the rules and don't do their due diligence or don't look into things. In their particular case, they specifically did their due diligence. They didn't change on the rules basically changed on them in their particular instance. I understand why the city went towards that, because there should be a reasonable expectation for people to be able to live in neighborhoods and, like people had said, know who your neighbors are. Although we are a neighborhood of rentals and tourists that come, there should be an expectation that we should have certain neighborhoods where we don't have short-term rentals. I probably spent an hour on the phone with legal counsel regarding this and trying to come up with any way we could to do a grandfather specifically for. The other thing that I looked on the criteria with this was the fact that the demarcation line of the rentals was one side of the street can rent and the other side of the street can't. So it makes a big difference when you're talking about the fact that although your neighbor may not be renting, the 2 people in front of you are still renting. And that's why it also made it very difficult, because Bay Avenue is the demarcation. One side can, one side can't. I would never condone going behind the neighborhoods and wanting to create short-term rentals anywhere else. This one seemed like a special application because of the fact that they are on the road that does allow rentals and the fact that they had done their due diligence. What I found out through the research was that in turn comes out to what we would call spot zoning. And if we spot zone, it opens up the city to a very big problem in that people in Colony Club, Palmetto Trace, that also bought prior to those dates, would then still be able to go ahead and request to do short-term rentals in neighborhoods that have traditionally been more of a long-term rental. So this is a very difficult position. I'd love to be able to go ahead and grandfather, and we kind of see the instance now of where one leads to another, and the perfect example, and that's why I asked where the other couple lives at. when we approved that one, there are 2 houses back beyond that portion. Once again, now it's that slippery slope. There's no telling what other councils will do or whatever, but I can tell you, particularly for me, this is very difficult because they did nothing wrong. They did nothing wrong, and things changed, and I understand why things changed, but I think that was a bad deal with Bay Avenue and the fact that that whole street should have been rentals allowed. I understand that when it was drawn up, one neighborhood was drawn up as single-family residential, the rest was not. But I put that explanation out there because I think people need to realize that this isn't a cut and dry decision of very easy to make based on the fact that, and I would ask people to put themselves in that circumstance, that you bought that property back 10 years ago and knew the only way you could have that property was to be able to go ahead and do rentals on it, and then all of a sudden things change. You did the right thing, you paid your taxes, things change. So it's tough, and I know since then a lot of people have settled into Bidawee, and it's a beautiful neighborhood, and we all love Bidawee. But that's why this is particularly very difficult for me, to render that decision, to not allow them to be able to continue what they're doing. But I wish I could just pick them and say, for them, because they did their due diligence, due to the demarcation line, yes, and I'm being told that I physically can't do that somehow without opening it up to the whole city on spot zoning.
We've run into that before on other issues, haven't we, Ms. Myers? You know.
Ms. Strange, would you like to say anything? Thank you. John?
I had a question for Mr. and Mrs. Meeks, if I may.
Okay.
Can we ask for them to come up?
Wait
It's
just a
delayed.
minute.
Yeah,
Is
okay.
she listening to the phone or not? We can't do this.
She's actually listening to the computer.
Am I coming through?
Yeah, go ahead, Josie.
A nuisance. My question, here's my question was, in 2006, you've owned the home since 2004, we should correct that.
We have owned the home since 2004.
Right, and
June
in
1,
but in 2006, when the rule changed, were you aware that you were not,
Not at all. We were not aware until December 2015.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Josie, are you ready?
And typically, when they
Okay,
send, when somebody sends a notice like that, they send it to
Which one's
the name and address that's on the, hang the damn phone up.
Right here.
Here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Josie.
Okay. All right. What bothers me the most about this is
Get your ass here to the meetings or don't, girl.
there's a really bad lag. I'm trying to.
You ought to be on this end.
Try.
Josie, if you'd quit listening to the TV or the internet and just talk on the phone, that would work.
Or be at the meeting.
All right, let's try this. What bothers me the most about this is that when the ordinance went into effect in 2006, I don't understand why, this goes back to the middle of the road. I don't know why both sides of Bay Avenue not put into the short-term rental zone. The Weeks are meticulous landlords. I mean, there have been no police calls. I've done my research. You drive by their property, it is pristine, and they rent to good people. You're going to have complaints about any of your neighbors. God knows, I'm sure my neighbors have complained about some of the parties I've had at my house. I think that the biggest thing that bothers me is that they weren't notified. They weren't notified in time to come down here and fight for their right as a property owner and as a right to do short-term rental when the ordinance went into effect in 2006. I think, ultimately, I think that even though the majority and the mayor did say if one single person was against it, that would squelch the deal, but I think the whole street should have been allowed short-term rental because they can stand in their front yard and see short-term rental right in front of them. That's it.
Thank you very much.
But in the back, but if the north side of Bay Avenue has short-term rentals, then they back up to another street.
Streets always separate zoning. Front Beach Road has different rules on the north side and the south side. I mean,
Yes.
that's just a fact of life. That happens everywhere. Phil?
I have a question for Mel. And it's basically what Mayor just spoke about, the center line of the street. I mean, like, they can look out, their neighbors can rent, they cannot. And then it goes back to what John was saying, they back up to their neighbors behind them. So that would put in basically another street. I mean, is there a reasoning, is that the reason for the line down the street?
As the mayor said, that happens all over. You've got it in Colony Club, Open
Right.
Sands, Low Water. Streets are used as boundaries. Bodies of water are used as boundaries. Railroad lines. There's always some sort of line that it usually ends up following. And roads typically do it, especially if it's a major road. You will have one district on one side and one on the other. And when the first zoning ordinance was done in 1977, Bay Avenue South was R2. Bay Avenue North was R1B, single family residential. So that was done in '77, the first zoning map.
Okay.
Were these meetings noticed?
Yes, sir.
And I understand that they were not personally notified, but I own some property in Walton County. And I've watched their public notices in North Carolina and Walton County. And when there's something that's happening in my little fish camp community, I make sure I attend to it. And I think that's our job, and I think that's our duty, and it's the only duty of the city, is to publicly notice a meeting and publicly notice changes you're gonna make to people's property. And with that, we've all spoke, and I'll be glad to entertain a motion.
Do we want to read that first, or so we know if we're voting pro?
Read the motion.
So,
They are asking us to discuss short-term rentals. Do we want to make a change to the zoning of Bay Avenue?
Can I ask the attorney
Is
one
that
question?
correct? Okay.
Can I make a motion to specifically, for the weeks, be able to continue and be grandfathered them individually?
I don't think it's a legally defensible one. You can make it. I don't think it's legally defensible.
Can't hear you.
She said that he could make any motion, but she didn't think it was legally defensible.
Can we make a motion to include the entire street?
You can.
The street you could do.
Then I make that motion.
But with the
Are you saying with
We
those?
do not do that
It
at a
won't be-
meeting that hadn't been noticed.
It
I
won't
don't
be
think.
effective.
You could
Making the
make
motion
the
will direct
motion
staff to create that
that you
ordinance.
ask staff to bring back something with that, but you can't make a motion for it to be effective now. Are you saying you want to make a motion to ask staff to bring back something on changing the entire street?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Does that motion have a second?
I would second it.
Madam Clerk,
Could we have some discussion here, sir?
if you need some.
Well, thank you, I appreciate that. We're supposed to represent all the people. If we have 5 who support, 9 who are against on Bay Avenue, and 4 who signed on Bay Avenue who signed the petition against, I would want us to be aware of that. Thank you, sir.
That's why I asked Mel. All right, call the roll.
Councilman Solis?
Yes.
Councilman Rickert?
No.
Councilman Chester?
No.
Councilwoman Strange?
Yes.
Mayor Thomas?
No, ma'am. All right, once again, do we have a motion whether anybody would like to change the terms of the change the zoning on North Bay Drive to allow short-term rentals? There is no desire to change, and I would assume this dies. And we will move to item 2. Ordinance 1391, the city treasurer, first reading.
An ordinance of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, providing that the city treasurer shall be appointed by resolution of the city council, deleting references to the city clerk in the city's facsimile signatures procedure, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, and providing an immediately effective date. The real importance, the real effect of this ordinance is to restore to the council its ability to appoint whoever the city treasurer needs to be by resolution, so that it doesn't require 2 readings and a public hearing.
Sure.
A question for you, Your Honor, or maybe Ms. Myers, is in the past, the city clerk, who's also been our chief financial officer, has been, served at the pleasure of the council versus, is that correct, versus civil service?
Yes.
The clerk serves at the pleasure of the council.
That is correct.
Now that we have a new clerk, will this city financial chief, CFO, chief financial officer, whatever we call that person or that position, will that person answer to the council or to civil service?
I think she's technically an assistant to the city manager / finance director. She's no longer the city clerk, so she isn't really affected by this ordinance in any way, except her signature will be potentially removed from the signature plates.
I mean, just so we know what we're talking about, you're talking about Ms. White, will she answer to civil service or serve at the pleasure of the council?
She serves at the pleasure of Mario.
When you made that change,
As does the clerk?
The city clerk
Clerk
serves
serves
at
you.
your pleasure,
But
the pleasure of the city council.
you're saying the financial officer will now serve. Very good. That's good. That's just what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. And Madam Clerk?
Councilman Solis?
Yes.
Councilman Rickert?
Yes.
Councilman Chester?
Yes.
Councilwoman Strange?
Yes.
Mayor Thomas?
Yes, ma'am. Item number 3 is ordinance 1392, amending the LDC regarding planning board, first reading.
An ordinance of the City of Panama City Beach, Florida, amending the city's land development code, amending Chapter 8 related to city boards to reduce the size of the city's planning board to 5 members, providing for appointment of 1 member by each council member, providing for member terms to run concurrent with the term of the council person appointing the member, providing that unexcused absence twice or more in a calendar year shall be cause for removal, providing for reappointment of a vacant seat by the council person who first appointed the seat, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, and providing an immediately effective date. I would like to propose 2 changes to the version in front of you. I use the word repeatedly in this ordinance, the appointing council member. But the council ultimately is the one who appoints the board. The council member is now given the power to nominate 1 person that the board will then ratify. So I would like to change the sort of nomenclature from appointing council member to nominating council member throughout. The second thing I would like to clarify, because it was not clear to me from your discussion at the last meeting, failure to attend 2 planning board meetings per calendar year, which are not excused by the council member or the planning board. You said both things, and I wasn't sure which you intended, but both can't stand. I think it needs to be one or the other.
Council member. I mean, you know personally more whether somebody's had a problem that they couldn't make it or not. And none of us up here, I don't think, would want somebody that missed too many. They wouldn't be representing you very well.
Okay, I'll make that change.
I think.
Yes.
Now, you just said something I'm fogged on, and that is that if the council member appointing this person, I appoint Jane Doe, and then it has to be ratified by the entire council. So if the other 4 decide they don't want Jane Doe, then they can scrap my choice?
I don't think that is the policy you were adopting, but you are ultimately, the council is ratifying. You have the power to nominate 1 person.
But then the council ratifies. What does the council ratifies mean?
You will say, I nominate Jane Doe, I nominate John Doe, I nominate Alex, I nominate Matt, and then there'll be a motion. Dee has her list of planning board members, there'll be a motion, I approve the planning board.
But what
as
if one
nominated.
of the council members doesn't like the appointee of the other council member and does not want to ratify?
I suppose they can vote no on that slate.
Okay.
So that's basically how y'all were doing it in the first place.
That's
That's the way it's
correct.
being done right now.
That's correct. We've come full circle. And to me, we're right back to where
No, we
started.
haven't. People applied to the planning board and every other board. And there were 2 or 3 people that applied, and that's the people you were taking from.
That's correct. That is different. People wanted to be considered, and those were the candidates that a council person couldn't say Jane Doe's mine, although she
That's
didn't
right.
apply. So what to me is positive about the changing to 5 members is that I have long been in favor of having term limits on some of these boards, and this will take care of that. Because if we are term limited, as is the mayor, then I would think that these boards, and not because somebody's not performing, but to give other people a chance to serve. Because it's hard to get your foot in the door if you want to serve your city. I mean, we need to create more opportunities, I think, and this will indeed do that. That being said, I don't think that this current planning board, it did what the previous council asked it to do. It developed a land development code. The board, that council, including Ms. Strange and me, voted 5-0 to adopt the board. It was led by Mr. Leonard and his department, spirited and shepherded all the way by our legal department. So I don't think that the planning board did anything wrong. If we decided to stay with 7 members on the planning board, that would be fine with me. I don't think this is a bad ordinance. That being said, rather than unceremoniously dump these 7 people who are serving, my suggestion is we make this effective the first of the year. I would make a motion, Your Honor, if it's in order to make a motion that we adopt this as written, except making the new planning board method of selection effective January 2, 2017, to give other people time to A, apply, B, for us to get to know members of the planning board that we need to know if they should stay on or not, and not do it quite so fast. That would be my motion. Understand the motion?
Yes.
We adopt this measure, make it effective January 2, 2017.
We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Can I add to that motion?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Josie?
I like the 7-person board. And I think that if each of us nominates somebody, appoints somebody, then that allows the planning board to appoint 2 other people that we would again vote on. But I think that the 7 has worked for ever and ever, and it's a good number. I agree with John on that.
I would, with your permission, Your Honor, I would keep my motion as it is, not with meaning no disrespect to Ms. Strange, but I would keep it as it is, that we do go with the 5, except we make it January 1 to be sure the council has time to do its due diligence on what comprises the board, who they are now, who they need to be in the future, so we make a good decision. It gives us plenty of time and start the new year with a new board and a new concept.
I'll second that motion as the 5 with the January start date.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Call the roll, please.
Councilman Solis?
Yes.
Councilman Rickert?
Yes.
Councilman Chester?
Yes.
Councilwoman Strange?
Say that again, Josie.
Yes.
Mayor Thomas?
Yes, ma'am. All right, moving on to item number 4, discussion of a workshop on HOAs regarding cleanliness and image of the beach. Mr. Solis.
Thank you, Mayor. I placed this on the agenda based on, we've had an outstanding summer that's been going on the beach, and I tend to read a lot of the blogs that are going on, and as well as participate on the beach as much as I can. And I hate to say this year is probably the first year I like to paddleboard, and I get out whenever I can on the calm waters, and probably the first year not just when I'm walking the beach and I'm picking up trash, but where I'm actually having to stop constantly on my paddleboard and pick up trash out in the Gulf as I'm paddling, picking up different pieces of trash that are out there. I think it's a good opportunity every year in November, usually the first week in November. The HOAs have their board of director meetings. They probably supply 60 to 70% of the tourists here, that the accommodations for them. And I thought it'd be a good time to be able to go ahead and possibly have a town hall. And what I'm doing is I'm bringing this to the council to see if I can get buy-in from everybody to where we might do a joint public meeting, the council with the board of directors, the community, the TDC, and also see if the county is willing to go ahead and buy in on this. And basically what it's to do, what I've found out over the last 3 months is that as I talked to Mario many times and I said we need to enforce this and we need to start cleaning this up and we need to do this, a lot of times it comes back to the fact that a lot that's written in Chapter 7, I believe it is, in Chapter 7 deals with the upland owner has a right and a responsibility also to do certain things on their property. Being on a couple of different board of directors, a lot of times that discussion never comes up. We always think that it's the TDC, we think it's the city, and don't take the responsibility that we could from that aspect of it. So what I'm looking to try and do is see if we can't set up a public meeting to see if we've got buy-in that we think it's a good idea to try and schedule a meeting around then at a large enough area where a lot of the board of directors could come in to talk about a partnership of trying to keep our beaches clean, to see what we can do to improve and realize that it's not just the city, whether it's somebody driving in code enforcement down the beach and see somebody with a glass bottle, but that the property owners themselves also realize if they see somebody coming off their deck with a glass bottle, say, hey, no glass on the beach. Hey, no cigarette butts, should be left in the sand. It's just to try and come up with the partnership to see if we can go ahead and try and get our beaches moving in a better direction of keeping it a lot cleaner. And get the buy-in from everybody so that the community as well as the condos are looking at it the same way. Possibly come up with a new advertising campaign strategy. It's hard when people come to public accesses and they see 12 rules that talk about no glass bottles, no cigarette butts, no trash, these different things. But actually come up with a new campaign with some nice things that we can look at, some trash can wraps that just show people we are actually trying to improve the image of our beach. Like I said, I've been going through dozens and dozens of blogs where people are talking about it really disappoints them when they come and they're digging or their kids are digging and their cigarette butts all within the sand or their kid cut their foot on a piece of glass. I think all of us that live here realize that our beaches aren't kept the way they should, and this is all just to try and promote and improve that image. So I was just trying to see if the council would be willing to accept that. I know Mario has a meeting tomorrow, I believe, with the county to where he could maybe discuss it to see if the county would be on board with that. I've spoken to the TDC, and they're willing to join this partnership and have this meeting. And I'm just hoping that maybe we can kind of, it's just an added feature to be able to see if we can bring the community together a little bit more on moving in a direction when it comes to trying to keep our beaches as clean as possible.
I think it's a good idea.
Comments?
I agree.
All right, we'll leave it up to you and Mario to come up with a schedule and a location and things with the TDC and everything. And, all right.
And like I said, typically that weekend is usually when about 60 to 70% of the boards are down here is November 5th when they have their annual meeting. So it'd be right then, probably that Thursday or Friday prior to that. But thank you for your support.
Now, who can attend this, Counselor?
It would be everybody. I mean, once we open that up, it would be a public workshop, and it would be for the community as well as the board of directors, the TDC.
But this very well might be something that we're going to vote on later, right?
I view it more as a town hall.
Well, we
discussion.
might vote. We might vote to on our access area take down some of those 10 signs.
Yeah.
And that might require a vote. And so then, can we all be there? I mean,
yes.
That's why it's a public workshop.
Yeah, public. I'm asking that all the council be there. That this be something that all the councils have.
Publicly noticed meeting,
Right.
and we're just, I think all we're doing today is approving, giving them the opportunity to set it up.
and it's
Is
a
that all you need, Amy?
So it's a public workshop, that means that the public, we want comment from the public, correct?
Yeah, if they've
And
got some
HOAs
ideas on how
and
we can do
everybody.
better, of course.
How is it that exempt from the sunshine law?
It's not exempt. It would be a
It's not,
sunshine law
it-
meeting.
We're there.
That's why you advertise it.
It's just, it's a workshop rather than a regular city council meeting. It's a workshop on one topic.
You just cannot vote. A binding vote.
You traditionally do not in a workshop.
Okay, all right, thank you. I think it's a good idea.
You gather information to bring back here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's what concerned me, where we might vote.
You would gather and you'd gather up too much information.
Not me, you know that. Thank you.
All right. You need anything out of that, Hector?
No,
other
sir.
than that?
No,
All
sir,
right.
appreciate support.
Item number 5, public comments limited to 3 minutes. Please remember when you come to the podium to give your name and address, and we will be starting off with the list so we don't get confused again. If you're-
I'm sorry.
Is her name on the list?
No.
No, sir.
Okay, just wait just a minute, ma'am. We'll have you right
Okay.
there.
Jim Divas?
Who?
Next.
Travis?
Travis, who, chauffeur.
Travis Schofer, 500 Augusta Avenue, Panama City Beach, Florida, 32407. My comments is more in regards to the Gulf Coast Jam. Basically, it's listed as a partner on the Gulf Coast Jam, Panama City Beach, and also it's on city property. I own a small beef jerky company, and we're precluded from participating in this event just because pretty much just corporate sponsorship, and they're like a $1.5 billion company, and we obviously can't compete. So my question to you guys, if you would consider, it's probably too late this time, to maybe put a clause on any events that take place on city property or sponsored by the city that would not preclude a local business. Just for thought, it's just we're a local family-owned business, veteran-owned company, and it's just kind of frustrating we can't participate in this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What, Mario, is that TDC or is that?
This is, the venue is being rented by a private company.
Right.
TDC is providing some funds, but
Okay.
that has nothing to do with it. This is a private company that is renting the facility, putting a fence around it, ticketing the facility, and charging for vendors to be inside the facility.
Okay, all right, okay, thank you.
Next, please.
Colleen?
Hi. Colleen Swab, California Cycles, 13416 Front Beach Road. We bought probably 30 cars this past March. We have issues with 6 of them. The manufacturer company is taking them back, and they're giving us, we have the difference of the pricing in the vehicles that we have. The ones that we have were very expensive of the 6 cars that they're taking back. They're giving us 10 cars for the 6 to work out the money difference. Now, the reason I'm here is because those are not part of your cutoff. But because those vehicles were paid for way before your moratorium, we would like to be able to permit them and take care of them and put them in our fleet as they're supposed to be. I just wanted to give you guys heads up what's going on. We don't have the cars yet because they're coming to pick up the 6 and working it out. But I can have a letter from the manufacturer showing this is A, what happened, B, this is what we did to switch them out. I hope that's not an issue. But anyways, that's I'm just telling the board what happened. So
they were ordered in the correct time, right?
well, no, we have them. They're running. We
I
we
got
had
you.
run them,
Okay.
but there's a manufacturer defect that we can't
Taking those.
fix.
Oh, okay.
So they're going back.
Okay.
And they're sending 10 cars because we paid. They don't have the cars. They can't use those cars.
Okay.
So they're giving us cheaper cars to fix the problem. So they understand it's an issue and they're trying to fix it, and they're fixing it by giving us 10 cars instead of 6. But they'll have to be permitted and go through all the things that we go through. But we have a moratorium. But I don't see how that would change it because we're taking 6 back that that we had all, before March, so I didn't know if I come to you guys, or do I go to the city, or I don't know what to do, so I guess I'm coming to ask for.
Mario, what do we need to do in that situation?
I'll have to look into it.
Okay.
It's not cut and dry. We'll look into it.
Okay. All right. I can get a letter from the manufacturer of what happened and what they're doing and why they're doing, so that won't be an issue. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleen, let me ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you'll be putting more carts out on the street?
Well, they're
No.
giving us 10 cars for the 6 that we actually had, so they are giving us 4 cars.
So that
But you
you'll
could-
have
But-
4 more in your fleet out on the road?
I'm sorry, say it again. I didn't hear you.
Yeah, this is a horrible connection. You'll have 4 more cars or vehicles in your fleet that'll be out on the road.
Either it's like this. They're giving us the 10 cars, and I'm going to take them. We have. I mean, I don't know what else to do, because I have to get our money back out of what we paid. I mean, we paid almost $12,500 for each vehicle, and they don't have the 6 cars that I need, so they are giving me more. I don't know what else to do about that. So
I don't think this is the opportunity to fix this, but I will tell
I-
you, personally, you were given a permit for X amount of vehicles. And
Right.
that's how many you should have on the road.
so you don't have a problem if I take the 6 that we get and we can get those re-permitted, because they're
I
taking
personally
the 6.
don't have any say about it right now.
I-
This is public comment period.
I
and
understand
I'm
that.
not getting into that.
I guess I'm just bringing it to Mario's attention, and I'll call you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Is there anyone else?
Hi, I'm Janice Hatcher, and I live at 203 South Wells Street. And I would like to address what Hector Solis said about the trash and that sort of thing, picking that up, and all the signs that are all at the entrances about what should and should not be on the beach. I'd like to also ask you, when are you going to start enforcing the other sign that's on the access that says no dogs allowed on the beach? There has never ever been a ticket written. There's no warnings given. There's simply the person that's out on the beach rides up to them and says take your dog away. So a lot of the issues are here. We stress certain things, but we already have ordinances on the books. We're not enforcing those. You're looking the other way. The city, whomever, if they like a dog, they don't, just take your dog back. So I think you should be as adamant about enforcing the ordinances that are already on the book, and that one in particular. Dogs, it's not healthy for them to be on the beach, but when you're talking about digging in sand and trash and glass, digging in dog poo is not any better situation. I think it's a little bit even worse. So I'd like to see that ordinance enforced, and I have been after that for 5 years as I've watched them carry the dogs on the beach, leave the poop on the beach. It's nasty. So I ask you, please be as adamant about enforcing that rule, and I'd like to know how many tickets we have given for that, or if you could check on that and report back to me at the next meeting. I'd like to know. The last time we talked at the previous board, not this one, but they had not given 1 ticket. So what are they out there for, and why do we have an ordinance when we're not enforcing? Thank you very much.
I'd like to comment on that.
Let's wait and see if anybody else has got anything on public comment period. Anybody got anything?
My name is Joanne Weatherford, and I live at 6220 Thomas Drive. I actually live on the county side, but I don't live on the city side. But I think the cleanup of the beach and should be from end to end. Not just, the county does their side and the city does their side. It should be a joint effort from one end of the beach to the other. My friends and I last week cleaned up Beach Access 12. I had to call my husband to bring us more trash bags and his truck, because just from Thomas Drive up to the sand, we picked up 5 trash bags of heavy-duty contractor bags of trash. And we have tourists coming down here, parking their cars, throwing their trash out. Why are there no signs that say $500 fine for littering? There's nowhere. You go down to St. George Island, as you're driving up to the state park, there is no trash on the road, but every 5 miles, there's a sign telling you that there is a fine for littering. And it's beautiful. There's no trash anywhere. You come down here, you have homeowners throwing mattresses out 2 streets off of Thomas in an empty lot. Something needs to be done.
Agreed. Any other comments? Thank you very much. Anybody want to respond to anything that public comment has yielded?
Yeah, I did want to respond, and I went down to Access 12 when I was made aware of that and saw what was going on down there last week, and I appreciate what you all did when you hauled all that off. And that is in the county. It's very much in the county, but like you said, the beach is the beach. And I can't tell you the plan that I'm talking about is to encompass the whole beach. That's why we're going to talk to the county. We're trying to get buy-in from the county, the city, the TDC, as well as all the condo owners, as well as any public that wants to be involved with it. So it would be from end to end. And we're missing out on an opportunity. The TDC has been granted that $600,000 to be able to go ahead and utilize towards different areas of the beach, like the lifeguards. There is a fund there that can assist in that to where we get more code enforcement. And I can tell you that the trash on the beach, the glass on the beach, the cigarette butts on, as well as the dogs, are all just as important. They're all on my list. I didn't sit down here and talk about every one of the items, but when talking to code enforcement, we were specifically talking about dogs for a while, probably 10, 15 minutes when I was talking to our code enforcement officer regarding dogs, because he has seen the people that do that. We are a city that, because we try and make sure our guests come back and have a great time, we are apprehensive to write the tickets. There are a lot of warnings that go on, and I'm sure if we asked how many tickets we have for glass bottles, it'd be the same number as the dogs on the beach. None. And we do need to get better on that, and that's what this whole discussion's about, and see if we can get more staff on the beach and realize we want to be nice to our guests and let them know, but we should start having expectations, so people should respect our beaches when they come here. There's nothing wrong with making memories, having a great time, but you should respect the beaches when you're here. And that's what we're hoping we're moving towards, is getting towards that, where people realize they want to come here, they make those memories, and they don't have that bad experience of stepping in poo or cutting a foot, because that's what ruins a vacation for people. So I think we're trying to go.
Yeah, hold it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I can tell you, I have told as many people on the beach about you shouldn't have this dog on the beach as I've told them you shouldn't have that glass bottle. So, like I said, I think it's time for us to start moving in that direction. I think as a community we can get there. But it does take discussion. It takes discussion, everybody coming together and saying, you know what, we can have higher expectations. This is our house, this is our beach, and we want it to be a better beach. So,
thank you.
The
Hector's through.
Yeah, the addressing the dogs on the beach, I think we will find what I've seen. It's not just a tourist. I think our locals are taking their dogs down there that know better. Okay, and that might be something we need to look at. Yeah, we're a tourist community, but some of our locals are some of the ones that's taking the dogs down there, and they know about it.
I was told once by the police chief that a neighborhood had complained because people were speeding through their neighborhood. And so the police said, okay. So they went over there and they passed out citations. 68% of them were to people in the neighborhood.
Yep. Anything else, Phil?
Is this our turn to talk? Is this the council?
Yeah, that's what I
I was.
Oh
that
no,
was just
it's
on public
not.
comment,
I'm sorry. I'm sure I did that wrong. Public comment. Everybody's through with that. Item number 6, the attorney's report.
I met with staff earlier this week to go over some of the performance standards for low-speed vehicles, so I'll be putting those to paper in the next week or two, sending them back to staff, and then we'll be sending them out to you and then to the industry for some input.
Thank you. Mario?
Yes, Mayor. We have a couple of things. Would it be a good time now to introduce the fire truck?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On the fire truck, I provided extra...
Remember, tell us what time it is. Don't
Yes.
build the watch.
On the fire truck, everybody knows the fire truck had an accident back in April. We took it to the insurance company, they've offered us $47,000, and that is what was on the consent agenda, is to take that $47,000 and give the authority to the repair company to do the repairs. That repair company has offered something back to the city, and that offer to the city is they will take the fire truck for $250,000, and we can keep the repair money, so the city will net approximately $300,000. Do keep in mind, we were trying to sell the truck when the accident occurred, so this is lesser money than we had hoped to get if we had sold the truck. I don't believe that we are hemmed up on not being able to go back against the insurance company to see if we can gain more money than what we're getting from this, because the truck will be a year older if we did get to put it back on the market. The repair would not be complete until January, which is why this offer sounds actually relatively good, but it is way beyond my authority to sign off on, so I bring it to you.
Any discussion on the fire truck?
It's my understanding from talking to the chief and company and you, Mario, that the age of a fire truck, that 10 years old is a big threshold. And this accident and subsequent repair has tossed us over the line on that 10-year threshold.
That is correct. If we had sold it when we had hoped, it would have been 9 years old. By the time the repairs are done, it would be 10 years old.
And from my understanding is when somebody rear-ended our fire truck with all the lights on, and that next week we had a group flying in to look to buy that truck.
Not even the next week, 2 days later,
Okay.
they were scheduled to come look at the truck.
So it happens occasionally.
And basically there are hundreds of options on this, but if I can weed it down to two, the two options that I think are most prevalent are, we take the $250,000, put it into the fund that we use to purchase the new fire truck, or acknowledge to have the truck repaired and then re-execute the agreement to put the truck on the market. So the two things are, we sell the truck or we sell the truck. The difference is we sell it now for $250, or we gamble selling it for possibly more in January, February. The company, taking into account that it is now a 10-year-old truck, is saying that it's probably worth $300 to $325. So we're taking a gamble for $25, $30.
But you, either way, you would go back and try to get
Yes.
a better deal out of the insurance company.
We think we
Okay.
have the opportunity to go back to the insurance company to see if we can get damages for the loss of value of the truck for the extended time period that it took to come to a settlement.
What's the anticipated delivery date of the new truck?
September.
September as in 30, 40 days?
Yes.
Great. So we won't be out of a truck long. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
What I've asked Mario on that specifically was the fact that nowadays in accidents, there's a specific clause used, diminished value, that when you get into an accident, you're going to receive less for that vehicle because that vehicle was damaged significantly. And I think between the 10-year period and the fact that right away the company that buys it, they usually discount it probably 20 to 25% just because of diminished value. And I think that's what the League of Cities attorney has not looked at, is that clause. Whether it's applicable or not, I don't know. I've been successful in a diminished value case, and it's part of the norm now, where if they make that loss, I would ask that we try and pursue that as much as possible, because we're looking at a net $100,000 loss due to no fault of the city from what we were looking at last year, what was going to come in, or just a few months ago.
And y'all are doing that, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that something, Ms. Myers, can we do that?
We'll work with the Florida League of Cities to do it.
Right, okay.
We can pursue it. We may not be successful, but we can pursue it.
At least ask.
All right. Your pleasure, gentlemen. Ma'am?
Sell or repair.
Do we want to decide now? There are no other options to be explored, or you narrowed this down and feel like this is a recommendation?
If we're going to repair, I have to give the repair notice in the next 10 days, I think is what they gave us.
Can we ask the chief what he thinks, and deputy chief, please? He's the one who broke it.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I agree with the city
Name and address,
manager.
please.
Sorry. John Daly, Fire Chief. We received a letter from the dealer who we purchased the vehicle from. They're very reputable, and they have advised us that this is probably in the best interest of the city. And we wanted to fix it, but I think, Mario, we've discussed it, and I agree with taking this direction. So,
The direction of selling it now?
yes, sir.
And just taking the insurance check is on top of this.
Yes, sir.
I have one more nitpicky question. We shipped this to Wisconsin to the factory, right, to the dealer?
Yes, sir.
Who pays for that? Will the insurance pay for that?
Actually, the part of the clause is like $10,000 for those kind of fees, and the dealer, Brindley Mountain, is
Part
willing
of
to
the
pay that.
47,000.
Okay.
Yeah, so there'll be no cost in transportation to the city.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Your pleasure.
I would make a motion that we go with the city manager's recommendation.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second, Madam Clerk. Would you want to ask something?
No, I think she was saying we need to.
That
read it.
allows us to deposit it, or does that allows us to spend it to repair it?
This
That's
is
for the repair.
I
approving
did
the
make an
repairs.
offer on
We're
this
not gonna
truck.
repair, we're gonna sell.
That's right.
So we do not need to read
That's
this.
That's right.
I told him I'd take it.
Madam Clerk?
Councilman Solis?
Yes.
Councilman Rickert?
Yes.
Councilman Chester?
Yes.
Councilwoman Strange?
Yes.
Mayor Thomas?
Yes, ma'am.
And Mayor, I do have
Yes.
a very long list of bid notices for re-roofing station number 32. We have an Edgewater lift station number 9. We have Front Beach Road segment 2 redevelopment that is out to bid. We have bids for resurfacing year 2016 roads. We have a bid for vendor supply compact truck loader and forest accessories. We have a bid for lift station number 31 radio telemetry unit panels. We have a bid for statement of qualification for impact fees. We have the request for statement of qualifications for the capital plan and life cycle, and the statement for qualifications for Front Beach Road redevelopment. And then lastly, if I may ask, Holly and all the department heads are working diligently to set budget workshops, and the next 2 best opportunities for those workshops.
And they will be public hearings, correct, Ms. Myers?
That is correct, public hearings. We would propose that we could do one on August the 11th and August the 25th, and we could do those at whatever time you choose, but if you choose to do those, we need to advertise those ASAP so that they can be a public meeting. We'd propose 9 o'clock or 9 o'clock for one or 1 o'clock for the other, depending on what you all wanted to do.
Those are the same days that we have a council meeting, is that right?
That is correct. That way everybody's already here and we don't have to worry about people being on vacation or anything.
I'm good with that.
Me
9
too.
o'clock?
Good. That the consensus?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah, that's good.
that's fine.
At 9?
9 o'clock. All right, that's the end of the city manager's report. Council comments? Madam Strange?
I have no comments.
Thank you. Hector?
Yeah, I've always got a comment.
Yeah.
One other thing I'm hoping that we can discuss and for future for a workshop. I'm at the period now after 3 months where I've met with all the different department heads in the city to kind of find out how things are going with the city and everything. And one thing I've found out is that, this council basically makes the city departments, it's very difficult for them to be able to do what they need to do because there hasn't been an adopted plan as to the direction of where the city's going. We should have at a minimum a 5-year plan for the city to be able to talk about what our priorities are as far as the roads, the buildings we'd like to build. It's extremely difficult when a city department is told, from every other week, we're going this direction, let's put priority here, to be able to kind of come up with a good way to manage their departments. I know when it comes to public works and sewer and treatment, they've got a great plan in place for what's going on, the money that's set aside for the different projects and everything. But, you know, Mayor, you started it with talking and saying, do we have priorities and what our priorities are? I think this would just kind of take that a little bit a step further in a workshop to be able to go ahead and sit down and say, is the new City Hall building our #1 priority to start going in that direction, look at funding for those things. Mainly the biggest interest I have is talking about roads. I've tried to get a lot of involvement in the roads from the CRA to the Back Beach Loop to the expansion of 98. It's really important for us to start talking about, as a group up here, what direction we can go so that everybody's kind of talking in the same way. Is our biggest priority to go ahead and finish up the extension of Back Beach Road, and how's the best way to get there, or at least that we're all on the same page on that. You know, right now the expansion of 98, we're looking at 8 to 10 years for that first segment by the time it gets through all the different processes. The hopes right now that we have, you know, through the TPOs, I'm hoping that it might get an SIS stature, basically, a strategic intermodal system, to where if we can get that pushed, and by us talking to people that we know and tell them how important that is, that may free up some fundings for Back Beach Road to get that other portion done. So I think if we can kind of get on that same page and talk about some of those important things when it comes to our roads and things, we might be able to go ahead and start alleviating some traffic that we have, as well as with the continuation of the push with the CRA.
Hector, since you're on the TPO, is there any funding available to help us out getting sidewalks like on Cobb Road or on Front Beach Road?
That's you kind of read right into my next section, which was we had a meeting yesterday with the Western Regional Planning Conference with several department heads to talk about different grants and things that are there. And when we talk about this planning, that would be one of them. We just missed out on a grant opportunity that was completed in June, where there's actually a grant out there to be able to pay for the design of the city's sidewalk plan, to where we could have actually had a grant to pay to come up with the plan. And the beauty of the Western Regional Planning Conference is that when they do a plan for you, not only do they identify where you need the sidewalks, then they also identify all the different grant structures that are out there to try and pay for those sidewalks.
How long has this been going on? I mean, have we been missing out on this for 20 years?
No. I don't know how long. You know, like I said, I don't know who was involved with the Western Regional Planning Conference before, but I noticed it when I was at one meeting and noticed that Callaway had, 10 projects coming up for sidewalks, all being paid for by grants, and realizing why aren't we getting any of those grants. So there's actually better ones that deal with the school districts that will pay for sidewalks within 2 miles of a school. And we have many areas with our schools. Just on Middle Beach Road, our elementary school there, we could definitely have sidewalks on the south side of Middle Beach, sidewalks on Clara going back towards the neighborhoods. There's a lot of areas, but it probably starts with that comprehensive plan and going after that. I think we talked about brown sites, which will be coming up with the CRA. There are grants for $200,000 per brown site, and I believe we're going to be dealing with 4 to 5 brown sites on the CRA 3 segment with 79. There's a St. Joe funding that is automatic grants that are out there for 4 different criteria areas, one of those being for health and fitness. So one of the things, and that's every 2 months, where St. Joe, when they sell property, it goes directly into a fund, and they take applications every 2 months. And so Recreation is going to be looking at the fact that maybe we can request, we're looking at $300,000 in playground equipment. Is there a possibility to get a grant to help with the playground equipment or lighting of the ball field? So there's a lot of grants out there that we haven't taken advantage of, and hopefully the Western Regional Planning Conference is going to be able to assist us with some of that. And it comes at a fee. They're not just a free organization, but they're there to assist, and we won't know until we go after them. But those are some of the things that have come up, and that's why I just thought it would be good if we can at least start thinking about, as we're starting to do assessments that we put out for bid regarding roads and fire department and everything else, it'd be a perfect time to start trying to set up a little bit of a plan and see if we can't all get on that same direction to go to where we're starting to talk about sidewalks, we're talking about roads, and see if we can all get maybe on the same page on what the direction of the city's going to be.
I think it's great.
That's all.
I feel like the departments are doing that be it call it 5-year planning or what. We all believe water and sewer is. I think Mr. Casto, the streets department. I think the departments, when you watch the city council operate, that might scare you a little bit as far as 5-year planning. But I think a number of the departments, Mel has to with his comprehensive plan updates to the state and so forth. So I think a lot of that is in place. Can it be improved? Can we help it as a council? Wouldn't argue with you. One thing that I would comment on Hector's thoughts there is he and I both are on the Bay County Transportation Planning Organization. That's a group that's formed to say Bay County prioritizes state of Florida DOT. You're going to spend money in Bay County. We would like it spent here. Now, comprised of that board is 5 members from the Bay County Commission, 5 from the city of Panama City, 2 from Callaway, 2 from Lynn Haven, 2 from the beach. Now, with the CRA we have going here, some people down there feel like the county has, given us enough of our own money back that hurts us in other projects. And the fact that Panama City and Bay County have that many votes, it's tough too. And Mr. Thomas has been on 2 sides of this issue and would understand that too. And the Back Beach Road that Hector's talking about is number 6 on the list and has moved up recently. Part of that due to some efforts on our part, Hector as well. So, that's moving along.
Anything other than that issue for you? You have anything else?
Yes, sir, and I've talked to Mr. Gisbert and Mr. Leonard about this. We've heard a lot of conversation about code enforcement. I mean, today we had so many of you who had comments and thoughts and ideas and complaints and all of that welcome and interesting. What I propose is that the Code Enforcement Department is getting all kinds of great ideas from a lot of us. And what I think would be well worthwhile is if the council sat down in a workshop with Mr. Leonard's department, the code enforcement, whoever Mr. Leonard thinks ought to be there, city manager, and figure out, take a clean piece of paper and say, here's who we are as a city now. Because when code enforcement got its instructions last time, it was 30 years ago. But to sit down and say, here's what's changed now, and what do we need to be doing, and then ask Mr. Leonard and his staff with the city manager to gather all of these thoughts and come back and say, here's how we can accomplish that. And so I'd like to propose, Your Honor, that we have a public workshop, that the council can sit down with all of this input from, city manager, Mr. Leonard, his staff, and try to figure out what do we need done today in code enforcement. We've heard a lot of it today. We've heard a lot of people already answer that question. But let's tally it and then ask Mr. Leonard, Mr. Gisbert and company to come back with a recommendation how we accomplish these things.
Anybody want to add to that? Any comment?
I'm game.
That's a great idea.
I agree.
Yes.
I think one of the problems we've got with code enforcement, and I've said several times, I think it's horrible. I think the whole setup, the way it's working, is horrible, and it may be just because of why you stated. They go out 20 years ago or 25 years ago or last week, and they write a ticket, and that person comes and sees me, or he sees you, and asks if I can help. So I go tell Mario, see if you can help this guy. And then the ticket's torn up, and after about 4 or 5 times, they're not going to write a ticket anymore. And then everybody's mad at Mario because he's interfering with the job, and Mario works for 3 of us jerks up here. And he's afraid not to do his job, which is do what we say. And the guy on the bottom takes a pretty bad beating on it. And I will tell you, this political season was different for me because I was in a lot more confined area than I've ever been. Sometime in the hospital, but a lot of times just right here in the center of the beach. The public in Panama City Beach right now. Before, every time you went to somebody, they're wanting, when I was in this position last time, they're wanting but 2,500 residents out here on the beach. We have grown a lot, and as people grow, you may not need more rules, but you certainly need to enforce the ones you've got. And rather than come to me to help you fix a ticket you get, come to me and tell me why that ticket was written on a rule that was bad, and then I'll vote to take it out. But if it's not a bad rule, abide by it. And I believe the spring break got all the bluster last time, but I think our main problems, we look like we deserved it. We do not clean up what we should clean up. We don't follow the rules we should be following. And I agree, Hector's cleanup ideas is I agree with 100%, and every one of us here that had been fresh on board, that's what we heard everywhere we were. Clean it up, or you won't get back in there. And I don't know that that's the necessary, but I think all of us live here and we know it looks bad. There are places in my neighborhood that I am ashamed of. And I think we need to start more in the neighborhoods than we are, but you make these people that live here proud and they will come out and make you clean up the rest of it. I think it's what we got to do. And John, you're right. Let's get together and tell code enforcement, if you write tickets, if the law's not good, we'll throw the law out, but we're not bothering you. And Mario, everybody, we're asking him to micromanage everything at our will every day. And that day changes. Today I'm pretty happy. It's my wife's birthday. But some days I'm not. And I think it's a good idea. And I assume that all you need for him to do is just like Hector, y'all get together and schedule something?
We'll schedule something.
All right.
Thank you.
Whose turn next? Your turn? Are you through, John?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. The only thing I'd like to discuss is our meeting times. I would like to have us go to 9 o'clock. At least one meeting at 9 and have one at 2. Or both at 9. Either one. The last meeting we had at 9 o'clock, we had a full house. So if there's an issue going on in here, people will come. If there's not an issue, then they won't be here if they're not interested. I mean, all of your supervisors will be here, department heads, department chairs, whatever you want to be. They don't have to stay late. They can come here. Just throwing it out.
I agree. I've always agreed.
I think I've stated it before. We have to have one evening meeting. That's just my opinion. If you want to take a 2 o'clock and make it a 9 o'clock, which is already during the day, I don't mind doing that. But I like the idea of having one evening meeting. That's my personal opinion.
Josie?
I have nothing other than I agree with Councilman Solis.
Okay. I agree they ought to be at 9. It's a business meeting. If you have issues that you need to face, you will be there at that time, as people prove every time you have an issue. Our staff comes in and goes home at the same time in the afternoon. They don't take comp time during regular work hours and miss things. I believe it's the smart thing to do, and I believe it's the right thing to do.
John, where are you weighing at?
I think if you have business with the city, as you have made it at 2 o'clock today, you can make it at 9 in the morning. So I would make a motion, Your Honor, if it's time that we change the city council meetings to 9 a.m. Is there any problem with that before I make my motion, Counselor?
I can't hear you, John. Can you speak up?
I was going to make the motion to change the meetings to 9 o'clock, and then I asked Amy, is there any problem with us doing that right now this way?
There's no problem with it, except your motion was for both meetings, and I thought I heard at least one, at least one, at least one.
You did not hear me say that.
I know. So I'm not clear what I'm
You
supposed to.
pointed at me.
I would
well, I'm at Josie's phone
Move
area.
future city council meetings till 9 o'clock in the morning.
All of them.
All of them.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That motion is fine. I just wanted to be clear what my orders were.
Thank you.
I'll second. Need a second.
I do.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Councilman Solis?
No.
Councilman Riekert?
Yes.
Councilman Chester?
Yes.
Councilwoman Strange?
No.
Mayor Thomas?
Yes, ma'am. Any other comments?
Mayor, if I could change the budget workshop to 1 o'clock, it'll still work. Because we had just set it for 9, so this sets both of them to 1 o'clock. It's still the same day, it's still the same everything. It just makes that budget workshop at 1 o'clock as opposed to 9 o'clock.
On the
I'm
11th.
fine with that.
On the 11th.
On the 11th and the 25th. Yeah.
Yeah, the 11th and 25th. That it? This meeting's adjourned.
All right, Josie.
I will have to draft an ordinance to
Hello.
make it so.